Hello, everybody. Welcome to topic 6. Topic 6 is alternative forms of assessment. Our objectives set for us by the college are to 1, evaluate a variety of alternative assessment tools that are appropriate for STEM instruction. 2, analyze alternative forms or alternate forms of assessments in order to determine how to meet diverse needs of all students. And 3, to determine best practices for administering assessments with appropriate accommodations. This topic is set up the same as the other topics. So we've got 2 discussing questions, and then we have our assignment, and of course, as always, our participation. For our first discussion question of the week, it says, explain how alternative assessments can help a teacher meet accommodations for students with special needs. So you can think about possibly opportunities to provide real world or authentic assessments where students are actually engaged in the science that scientists do in the real world. You can think about multimodal assignments, so possibly PowerPoint options, providing students with opportunities to maybe do a portfolio of their work, maybe assigning some sort of project-based learning. Or you can think about different modified formats, how you can modify it for your students with different needs. For our second discussion question of the week, research 3 different types of assessment tools, provide the name of each tool, and a link to where it can be found with an analysis of its pros and cons. So you can think about, for example, using a learning management system or an LMS such as Canvas. You can think about using quizzes or Quizlet. AdaptiveU is another opportunity to assess students online. So just 3 different types of assessment tools, giving the link for each one, and then the pros and the cons that you can find. Okay, diving into our assignment, it is titled Alternative Assessments. So we are thinking about alternative ways that we can assess our students. There is a template with this assignment, and then there is also the class portfolio, or excuse me, the class profile that we have been using. So the template is here in the topic resources, ELM 463 alternative assessments. And then that class profile that we have been using in previous assignments is located here in the resources as well. So I'll go ahead and share my screen so you can see how I have filled out the assignment. It's very similar format to previous assignments we have done, so there's really not a lot new there. Just same format, just with a different topic. So let me go ahead and share that document, and then we'll kind of walk through it together. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, the template looks like this. It is a similar template that we have used in past assignments. So what you will do is you are going to choose 2 STEM standards. You can choose Next Generation Science Standards and GSS. You can choose Arizona State Science Standards, or you can choose for your particular state. Whatever works best for you is fine. So we're going to pick the 2 STEM standards. So for me, I picked use models to explain seismic waves and their effect on Earth. And the second one is define problems and design solutions to minimize the effects of natural hazards. Based on these standards, the 2 learning objectives I wrote is 1, I can explain the effects of seismic waves and their effects on using Earth models. And 2, I can design solutions that minimize the effects of natural hazards. I'm actually going to wordsmith this. I can explain the effects of seismic waves. I'm going to actually take this out. I think it's a little bit repetitive. So now it reads, I can explain the effects of seismic waves on Earth using models. Some verbs that we want to avoid, which I am still seeing on some of the objectives that we're writing, is the student will be able to understand XYZ, or the student will know, or the student will learn how to, or they'll appreciate, or they'll grasp. So we know that that is the outcome, that they'll be able to understand XYZ or learn how to do something. But what are you actually measuring? So we need to make sure that we are choosing measurable verbs. So explaining, designing, evaluating, creating, analyzing, comparing, contrasting. So just make sure we're kind of avoiding some of these words here. We also should be avoiding using double verbs in our objectives because we do want our objective to be not only student friendly, but we want it to be clear to students because they should be using those objectives to sort of self-check and self-rate and self-evaluate as they work through your lesson. So sometimes, for example, I'll see something like, the student will be able to identify and analyze. So we don't need both of those. So we got to think of what is our kind of higher Bloom's verb and go with that one. Sometimes I'll see things like the student will be able to explain XYZ to build 1, 2, 3. Again, we have to do our best to eliminate those double verbs and make sure that we're only using one verb in our objective. All right, so our next one is a title, description, and instructions of the alternative assessment. So 100 to 150 words. What I did here is I actually put what the original assessment is so that it's more clear what the alternative to that original assessment is. So for example, it might be something where students are taking a quiz on seismic waves. So the quiz would assess students' understanding of the different seismic waves, P waves and S waves, and looking at their impact on Earth. And then the question types would cover seismic waves, the different characteristics of them. So maybe how P waves and S waves move, and then how they contribute to earthquakes. So that would be, for example, the original assessment. An alternative assessment that I could give a student would be maybe to create a presentation. So again, we're going to have our title, we're going to have the description of the alternative assessment, and then we're going to have instructions for students. So here I just titled it Seismic Wave Model Presentation. The description is, in this alternative assessment, students will create a physical or digital model to explain seismic waves and their effect on Earth. So letting students have choice here is really great to help with that student buy-in, and also helps with that further differentiation by allowing them to choose to create maybe a diorama or something physical versus using the technology to create their model. And then they'll maybe present their model to the class, really showing their understanding of those seismic waves principles. For the instructions, I just have 3 simple instructions here for students. So build a physical model or create a digital representation illustrating the types and movement of seismic waves during an earthquake. Prepare a brief presentation explaining your model, highlighting key features and characteristics of seismic waves, and be ready to answer questions from your classmates, demonstrating a deep understanding of the subject. In either of these options, I probably would provide students with an example. I do that all the time with my 7th graders, and it really helps to eliminate the questions that they might have. And I tell them, of course, not to copy it, but to kind of use it as a guide and see what I'm expecting. So that is usually pretty helpful to them. We will use the class profile, and we will include differentiation. So you're going to choose 3 students, and based on your alternative assessment, that is what you're going to be differentiating for me. So I know that on past templates, we have picked students from that same grouping of students. So what I'm really looking for in this assignment is that you are specifically telling me how you're going to differentiate for them for the alternative assessment. So I'm going to be looking back up here at what your actual alternative assessment is. And so those differentiated strategies should relate to that alternative assessment. And then lastly, we've got that reflection. So 250 to 500 words. I just cut this out of the assignment in Halo and then pasted it here. So you're welcome to do that same thing, and then just type your assessment under your reflection here on the bottom. We don't need any scholarly resources for this assignment. It does not call for any, so we don't need to worry about that or worry about having a references section. So that is pretty much the gist of the assignment. Other than that, for this week, it's just doing our participation. So remembering that we are responding to 2 people, a substantive post on 3 different days of the week to give you 6 posts by the end of the week. All right, let me know if anything comes up or if you have any questions. I'm always here to help. I hope that you have a wonderful week. God bless.